I am the less favored twin sister, raised in the countryside estate, while my sister was pampered and brought up as a refined young lady in the inner chambers. Right from birth, our grandfather arranged our marriages. I married into the Wei family, who came from a military background. She married into the Li family, who were from a scholarly lineage. When we were to be married, my mother wanted me to marry into the Li family and her to marry into the Wei family. But on the day we returned to our parents' home, my sister cried and insisted on switching back to the original marriage arrangement, that Wei Qing was injured on the battlefield and can no longer perform his duties. I don't want to be a living widow for the rest of my life. Later, every night, Madam, it's dark now, time to extinguish the lamps and retire for the night. Damn it, my back is killing me. Who said he couldn't perform? He's simply a wolf that can never be satisfied. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. My poor daughter, you've suffered such a great injustice. Mother's heart ached terribly. She turned to look at me, her tone unusually soft and affectionate. Yuning, didn't you say you'd marry anyone? If that's the case, then switch back to your original identity with your sister. Other than me, no one can tell the two of you apart at a glance. I smiled bitterly to myself. Mother, do you know that Li Junyu and I have consummated our marriage, though I'm not sure if it really counts as consummation, that Li Junyu is only pleasant to look at. In reality, he's all show and no substance. It was completely different from the romantic love stories told in those books. My sister burst into tears, looking utterly pitiful. Sister, you were originally supposed to marry into the Wei family. It was only because Mother felt sorry for you having lived on the estate for so many years that she arranged for us to swap marriages, wanting you to become the young mistress of the Li family. But what have I done wrong? To marry a useless man and live as a widow? Upon hearing this, my mother grabbed my hand with a look of remorse. Yuning, if you must blame anyone, blame me. It's all my fault for listening to the Taoist priest back then and sending you to the estate. I only wanted to make it up to you, to marry you into a good family, to have you and your sister exchange marriages. But I never thought it would harm your sister. I looked coldly at my mother. It was clearly her who worried that the Li family had too many rules and feared that Shu Yuan would have a hard life after marrying into their household, which is why she made me switch marriages. They are all my blood relatives, so why do I not feel even a trace of their love? Forget it, after all. Our bond of kinship is too shallow. I shouldn't have hoped for more. This is the last time. From now on, our mother-daughter relationship is severed. I will not agree to anything you ask anymore. After bidding farewell to my parents and changing my clothes and makeup, I followed Wei Qing, glancing at Li Junyu and Shu Yuan beside me. Sure enough, Li Junyu only recognized the clothes, completely unaware that his new bride had been replaced. Good. That saves me from having to engage in those dull marital duties with him in the future. Suddenly, my foot slipped and twisted. Be careful, my lady, don't misstep. My waist was grabbed by someone, and I was caught off guard, falling into Wei Qing's embrace. The tip of my nose was bumped and ached with soreness. It hurts so much that tears are about to well up. This man, his chest is as hard as a wall. I looked up, about to speak. His resolute face was filled with chagrin. Did I bump into you too hard? My apologies, I'm all muscle, too solid. What kind of outrageous talk is this? Is he implying something about Li Junyu? What's the use of having hard muscles? What should be hard isn't hard. The bride you just married in the wedding ceremony has already run off with someone else. My heart was in turmoil, yet I calmly gave him a faint smile. Those who practice martial arts naturally have a different physique from ordinary people. Well, could he please move his hand away from my waist? Did he not realize how warm his palm was? My back is burning. As long as you don't mind my coarseness. My lady, how could I? You are so heroic and extraordinary. Wei Qing raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled. Very manly, I added. discreetly moving his large hand from my waist and pulling him toward the carriage. The Shu residence and the Wei residence were located in the south and north of the city, respectively. The carriage swayed, and I lifted the curtain to look outside. I didn't notice at all that Wei Qing was watching me with great interest. My lady is reluctant to leave her parents' home. In a few days, I'll accompany you back for another visit, I replied instinctively. We were never close anyway, so what's the point? Oh no. I almost let it slip. I forced myself to shut my mouth, my mind racing. I turned around stiffly. Her little face fell, her expression sorrowful, imitating Xu Yuan's persona, originally. My mother was also thinking of me and asked me to return to my parents' home in a few days. I was worried about how to bring it up to my husband. I never knew my husband could be so considerate. After saying this, I gazed at Wei Qing with deep affection. His eyes held an ambiguous, flickering light. It made my heart flutter with unease. Could it be that he noticed I switched with Xu Yuan? Impossible. Xu Yuan said that ever since Wei Qing lifted the red veil, his face had remained cold and stern. That night, he slept in the study. The next day, she finally learned that Wei Qing had been injured on the battlefield and was unable to perform his marital duties. It wasn't until today's homecoming visit that Wei Qing hurried over from the Wei Command Division. The two of them had barely seen each other more than a few times. Stay calm. Keep your composure. I must be more considerate since my wife has married me. Wei Qing's dark eyes were deep and smiling, and sincere. This expression was different from when he looked at Xu Yuan during the meal. Yet, I couldn't quite put my finger on what exactly was different. After all, I've never actually spent time with him. Everything I know about him comes from what others have said. We arrived at the Wei residence. I was worried that I wasn't familiar with the layout of the mansion and might give myself away. As a result, Wei Qing took the initiative to escort me to the corridor of the main house in the backyard. I felt as if a great burden had been lifted from me. Please return to your room and rest first, my lady. I will go to the study to attend to some official matters and will return shortly. I couldn't have been more pleased. Your official duties are more important. It's best to continue resting in the study. They say that military generals who lead troops in battle are particularly sharp in judging people. I'm afraid he might notice something amiss. Wei Qing, as a military officer holding the position of 1,000 household commander, holds a higher rank than my father, who is a minor civil official. The Xu family married above their station. If it were known that the Xu family had schemed in every possible way to marry off their daughter, their reputation would surely be ruined. My personal maid was also replaced with someone loyal to me, Miss. Why do I feel that Lord Wei is not at all like how the eldest young lady described him? Do you feel the same way? Chua nodded. The young lady said that Master Wei is dull and cold by nature, but along the way, I found him quite considerate and gentle. I felt a chill run down my spine. Chua, do I look like Xu Yuan? You two look almost identical, but the eldest young lady is a delicate dodder flower, while you, miss, are a hibiscus flower. I smiled and tapped her lightly. You're the only one who knows how to talk. Mother also said that aside from her, no one can tell me and Xu Yuan apart at a glance, not even my father can. When I finished bathing, Wei Qing still hadn't returned to the room, Yuecho, and I immediately went through Xu Yuan's dowry list. It was exactly twice as much as my dowry, TSK, with so much silver, no need to serve in-laws, and not even having to force marital duties. Such a good marriage, and Xu Yuan actually cried, made a scene, and threatened suicide just to switch with me. It seems I've been living too comfortably, day after day. All I think about are romantic fantasies and sweet nothings. When it comes to love, for me, it's a bonus if I have it, but if not, I'll just focus on living well in the present. Nothing is more reliable than money. Chua, how did the script I wrote this time sell? Not very well. The bookstore owner said that the new book from the shop next door, The General's Lotus Flower, is selling really well. Maybe you should stop writing about scholars and beauties and try writing something like this instead." She handed me a storybook, her face full of shyness. "Miss, please take a look for reference." This storybook was exceptionally captivating, with both illustrations and text, full of tension. It made my heart race. Just as I was getting to the most exciting part of the storybook, Wei Qing returned to the room, feeling guilty as if I were a thief. I quickly stuffed the storybook under the bed. I stood up and smiled. "Have you finished handling your official duties?" He nodded and began to undress. "What's going on here? Wife, please help me prepare my nightclothes." The corner of my mouth twitched. Is he planning to sleep in my room? No. Didn't Shu Yuan say he always sleeps in the study? What's going on here? After freezing for a moment, I nodded with a bright smile. All right. I turned around, and my face immediately fell. While preparing his clothes, I deliberately asked with feigned shyness, "Husband, will you be staying with me tonight?" "Yes, the past 2 days have been truly busy with official duties, and I've neglected you. Please don't blame me, my dear." The voice sounded behind me, and I froze for a moment, clutching the clothes tightly. How am I supposed to respond to that? Isn't he just a military man who only knows how to fight? Why does it feel like you have a whole set of prepared lines? I'm a bit overwhelmed. Turning around, I was about to say, "I don't blame you," but then I ended up bumping right into Wei Qing's embrace. Heavens, he's not wearing any clothes. His solid muscles, clearly defined and bronzed, exuded strength, just from that brief touch. I recalled the story from the script and the portrait of the male lead. My cheeks instantly flushed with embarrassment, but the thought of such a tall and mighty man like Wei Qing being physically injured, I couldn't help but sigh. Feeling that heaven had been unfair to him, "I understand, my husband." I handed the clothes to Wei Qing, feeling a bit more sympathy for him in my heart. Since we've already changed husbands, then as long as Wei Qing is willing to live a good life, I will certainly be a considerate and good wife. My wife. "You're so good." Wei Qing took the clothes, gave me a deep look, and turned to walk towards the bathing room. I gazed at his broad, well-defined back, even with scars both large and small. It wasn't the least bit unsightly. Instead, it had a rugged, weathered kind of wild beauty. Realizing I was thinking all these messy thoughts, I slapped my face and cursed myself harshly. "Shu Yuning, you just read about the rough man's tender feelings. How did you immediately put yourself in that situation?" Wei Qing is not capable. He's not capable. But in that aspect, he's not capable, yet his mighty and robust physique makes him seem so capable. Since Chuyue said that romance novels featuring rugged men and delicate women are selling well now, I'll use Wei Qing as the prototype to write about the tender side of a tough warrior and a delicate lady. Taking advantage of Wei Qing going to bathe, I immediately took out the novel and flipped to the exciting part one was just reading. The next moment, I closed the book with a burning face. Who wrote this book? How could the words be so explicit? What 8-pack abs, a narrow waist like a dog's. One night, so embarrassing, but it's actually quite nice to look at. Wei Qing is taking way too long to bathe. He didn't come out of the bathroom until I was already drowsy. "Husband, put out the candle, it's too bright." I'm not used to it. I grew up on the estate, and the nanny who raised me couldn't bear to light candles at night, saying she wanted to save money for my dowry. Unfortunately, she fell ill and passed away before she could see that day. And so I became accustomed to sleeping in dim surroundings. "All right," Wei Qing responded, and soon the dorm room went dark. In a daze, I felt myself being pulled into a broad, sturdy embrace. At first, it was cool. After a while, I was unbearably hot. I pushed it away in disgust, shifting my body further inside. "It's so hot. Don't get so close." Having escaped the heat source, I felt completely at ease and slept dreamlessly until morning. When I woke up, the sky was already bright. My nightgown was open, and the straps of the pink undergarment inside hung loosely around my neck. My mind was still hazy, unsure of where I was. The sound of splashing water came from the washroom. Then, I saw Wei Qing walk out. A cloth towel was wrapped around his waist, covering the important parts. Morning light streamed through the window lattice, illuminating the room. Water droplets rolled down his robust body from top to bottom, extremely sexy. I swallowed hard. My mouth was terribly dry. This early in the morning, a hunk just out of the bath, a blatant temptation. Damn it, darling, the commander is hosting a banquet today. I'll come pick you up after I finish my shift this afternoon. Watching his bronze-toned body being covered layer by layer with clothing, a few words surfaced in my mind. 8-pack abs, a narrow waist like a wolf's, incredibly capable. I had completely forgotten that my clothes were in disarray, revealing a glimpse of spring. Wei Qing finished dressing and turned around. "My lady, do you find my body too warm?" So, he suddenly paused, his gaze deep and profound as an abyss, his throat moving slightly. "Your sash has come undone." I looked down and saw a vast expanse of snow-white skin. My face instantly flushed bright red. I immediately gathered my clothes and pulled up the bedding along with them. "Please forgive my impropriety, my husband. It's my fault for wanting to be close to you, but I ended up making you feel hot." Me, what the hell, want to be close to me, get intimate with me? Doesn't he know his own situation? Isn't this just making things awkward for himself? I'm quite sensitive to heat, and I'm not used to sharing a bed with others. I tried to cover for him out of kindness. But I noticed Wei Qing looking rather gloomy and despondent. "You must be upset with me for neglecting you on our wedding night, which is why you don't like me." The tall, burly man lowered his eyes, his expression both melancholy and guilty. I was baffled. It's not exactly that I blame him, but I can't say I don't either. After all, it was Xu Yuan who was neglected, not me. I just entered the Wei residence last night, and he already shared the same bed with me. On the contrary, it was my fault as a wife for not being good enough last night. I complained about his body heat and even pushed him away. Alas, being a wife is truly difficult. I do not dislike you. You are my husband, the one who will spend the rest of your life with me. Later, I will have the servants change to a thinner quilt, so you won't push me away because you're afraid of the heat. Wei Qing smiled. "Thank you for your understanding, my lady." When Chuyue entered, my mind was still a bit dazed. I couldn't help but feel that something was off. "Miss, young Master Wei said the steward will come later to hand over the steward's tally and keys. From now on, you have the final say in the Wei household. You are the true mistress of the Wei residence." I was overwhelmed by the favor. After a moment, I smiled. Heaven has finally favored me, as the mistress of the household, with the authority to manage the estate in my hands. The days ahead will surely be better than those spent in the countryside manor. In the afternoon, Wei Qing returned to take me to the banquet. Just as I had finished handing over duties with the steward, the Wei family has a simple structure. In earlier years, during the war, Wei Qing's brothers died on the battlefield, and he is the child born in his parents' later years. Later, his parents also passed away one after another. After becoming a 1,000 household official, he established his own residence. Apart from the housekeeper, all the other servants were bought from the slave market. Marrying Wei Qing was truly an excellent match. No wonder mother was biased and let Xu Yuan marry into the Wei family. Fortunately, Wei Qing has a hidden physical ailment, which is why this marriage could be passed on to me. I will definitely be a gentle and considerate good wife. Even if he has a hidden illness, I don't mind him. The commander held a banquet to celebrate his wife's birthday. Not only military officers were invited, but also civil officials and minor clerks. When I encountered Xu Yuan and Li Junyu, I felt calm inside. "Sister, brother-in-law." Wei Qing followed my lead in greeting them, his tone and expression more natural than mine. "Sister-in-law, brother-in-law." Li Junyu was as refined and courteous as ever. Her gaze, however, was fervent as she looked at Xu Yuan. It seems the two of them were quite compatible in that aspect last night. So is it my problem? In a daze, Xu Yuan, with a face as delicate and coquettish as peach blossoms, affectedly took my hand. It's wonderful to see you again today, sister. We barely had a chance to speak during our brief meeting yesterday. Come, let's head over to the women's quarters. Wei Yiqing suddenly grabbed the corner of my sleeve, his gaze serious and intense. My lady, I will come to fetch you later. If you're bored, you can wait for me in the carriage after the banquet. Don't wander off. Looking into his dark, bright yet uneasy eyes, my heart inexplicably tightened. What is he doing? As if I could actually run away. Yes, I know. I reached out and gently patted his hand that was tugging on my clothes, smiling and nodding at him. Seeing this, Xu Yuan's expression instantly changed dramatically. I had no idea you and my sister were so close before. My parents and I were worried that Commander Wei might be cold and heartless, and not treat my sister well. It seems we were overly concerned. Wei Yiqing cast a cold glance at her. You jest, sister-in-law. Yuning is my wife. I, Wei Yiqing, treasure and respect her. I may be cold to others, but never to her. Xu Yuan's face grew even more unpleasant, angry, while I felt immensely pleased. However, is this still the rough soldier who's been in the military camp? I almost believed what you said. No. Does Wei Yiqing even know who he married in the wedding ceremony? In a remote corner, my sister and Wei Yiqing get along quite well, don't they? I smiled. Not bad, I suppose. Xu Yuan immediately blushed with shyness. My husband said that your wedding night with him didn't go smoothly, but last night, he and I had no trouble at all. You and him never actually got together. Could it be that my sister has some health issues? Seeing her delight in my misfortune while feigning concern, I replied with self-pity. Perhaps so. After all, I grew up on the estate living alongside servants and maids. How could my food, clothing, and daily comforts ever compare to my sister's refinement? Maybe it's malnutrition. So even at 18, her body hasn't fully developed yet. Xu Yuan felt a pang of guilt upon hearing this, nervously looking left and right, afraid someone might overhear. You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? If outsiders were to hear that the second young lady of the Xu family grew up on a farmstead, who knows how they would view the Xu family? I curled my lips into a cold smile, daring to act but not daring to own up to it. How hypocritical. Xu Yuning, mother injured her body after giving birth to you, which is why she mistakenly believed the Taoist priest's words. How can you, as her daughter, speak of her in such a way? Watching her face, so similar to mine, contort into a mask of hypocrisy, I just feel annoyed. She favors you to the core, so of course you defend her. I already severed our mother-daughter bond with her yesterday, and it was all for your sake. Xu Yuan twitched the corner of his mouth, feeling guilty. What does that have to do with me? I pushed her hand away and left, but then thought of something and turned back. I chuckled lightly and said, Congratulations on becoming the new daughter-in-law of the Li family. You'd better get pregnant quickly, otherwise, when your husband goes to the capital for the imperial exams and if he passes, your inner chambers might get quite lively. Xu Yuan's face darkened. Although I felt somewhat happy inside, there was still a hint of bitterness. My own family doesn't want me to have a good life at all. At the banquet, I was in a bad mood and drank 2 cups of wine. By the time I returned to the carriage, I felt terribly dizzy, and my stomach was burning. Chiyue smelled the alcohol and was heartbroken. Miss, why are you drinking? You have a cold stomach. How can you handle it? Did Xu Yuan deliberately use the mistress to provoke you? I'll go catch some bugs to scare her to death. I quickly grabbed her to stop her from getting out of the carriage. Chiyue, don't be impulsive. I'm not that bothered by what they did to the mother and daughter anymore. After a couple of drinks, they're part of it, but the other part is my own issue. I let out a soft sigh. Chiyue, is there anything wrong with my body? What? Chiyue paused. apart from your stomach being a bit cold, your health is quite good. I rubbed my temples. I'm talking about the women's aspect. Autumn Moon looked bewildered, not understanding. I patted my burning cheeks, feeling a bit embarrassed as I mentioned to her that Xu Yuan and Li Junyu had successfully consummated their marriage. Do you think there might be something wrong with my body? Qiuyue frowned. Miss, even if there's nothing wrong with your body, young Master Wei wouldn't be able to enjoy it anyway. The corner of my mouth twitched. That's true in principle. But, he is him, and I am me. I need to make sure my body is fine. In a few days, let's find some time to go to the village and have Granny Liu take a look. By the time Wei Qing finished the banquet and returned to the carriage, I was leaning against the wall, drowsy and half asleep. Why is your face so red? I opened my bleary eyes and said, I had a couple of drinks. He looked slightly surprised, then effortlessly scooped me into his arms and sat me on his lap. His brows were sharp like swords, his eyes bright like stars, and his gaze was as thick as ink, yet faintly shimmering with tenderness. He asked, Does your head hurt? I shook my head. It doesn't hurt, just a bit dizzy. His rugged, stern face broke into a gentle smile, filled with affection. Once we return to the estate and you have some sobering soup, you'll feel better. As he spoke, his large, well-defined hand gently caressed my cheek. It was as if he were tracing a precious treasure, focused and reverent. It makes one's heart flutter and inexplicably parches the throat. My lady, how can you be so beautiful? Thump. I felt my heart skip a beat. As our eyes met, I seemed to see a surge of desire in his gaze. It was the look described in that storybook Qiuyue gave me. The look a warrior gives his wife when he wants to do that thing. Burning, intense. This, a blatant seduction, knowing full well he couldn't perform. How could he still stir someone's heart like this? How can one remain pure-hearted and chaste in such circumstances? I closed my eyes and buried my face in his embrace. Husband, I feel dizzy and my vision is blurring. I shall close my eyes and rest for a while, out of sight, out of mind, so my resolve shall not be shaken. Wei Qing clearly didn't expect the person in his arms to pull such a move. The emotions spreading in his eyes instantly halted. Then he chuckled helplessly. It's fine, as long as it's her. The one he had admired for many years was not taken away again. He could wait a little longer. There would be plenty of time ahead. He was in no hurry, no hurry. For several days in a row, I have been sharing a room with Wei Qing, sleeping in the same bed. I always feel that something is off about him. I suspect he is deliberately, yet subtly, trying to seduce me. For example, wife, please prepare my sleepwear for me. I'm going to bathe. That body of his, with its distinct, smoothly defined bronze muscles, it makes one's thoughts wander just looking at it. Yet he remains completely unaware of his allure, utterly unself-conscious. He emerged from the bath wrapped in a towel, damp and steamy, drying himself off right in front of me before changing into his sleepwear. There's nothing wrong with my body, but his subtle teasing is starting to affect me, especially after I read the book The General's Hibiscus Flower that Qiuyue gave me. The early stages were filled with ambiguous tension, the middle part finally got steamy, and the later chapters were just shamelessly sweet and intimate. The General is incredibly strong and robust. The hibiscus flower is delicate and soft. It makes my resolve waver. Being a chaste widow is truly not easy to endure. Wei Qing is perfect in every way, so why is he lacking in that particular aspect? Has he seen a doctor? If only it could be cured, how wonderful that would be. Alas, I gazed at the canopy of the bed and sighed softly. Wei Qing emerged from the bathing chamber, his clothes damp with water stains. Does my lady have something on her mind? I stared at the canopy without moving, unwilling to look at his enticing, solid muscles that stirred restless desires. Tomorrow, I need to go out and probably won't be back until evening. Hearing this, Wei Qing paused his movements. A flicker of panic flashed in his ink-black pupils. Where are you going, my lady? I'm going to the Shu family's estate in the countryside. Wei Qing breathed a sigh of relief. Then I'll take you there tomorrow. Only then did I turn my head to look at him. No need to trouble yourself. I can manage on my own. Thud. My heart felt as if it had been struck hard. The man in front of me had, at some point, taken off the cloth towel from his waist. Just like that, he turned sideways, brazenly and completely naked, leisurely putting on his clothes and pants. The rumored injured area flashed before my eyes in a rather vivid manner. I was both shocked and mortified. I immediately turned to look at the bottom of the tent, my face flushing completely red. Was he truly injured there, or was it just a pretense? I didn't sleep well that night. In my drowsy state, I kept feeling something hard, hot, and burning against my back. I tossed and turned restlessly. I seemed to hear a muffled groan in my ear. I slowly opened my eyes. By the moonlight, I saw Wei Qing get up from the bed and walk toward the washroom. The room was quiet, and I strained to hear the sounds he made in the washroom, muffled, low and hoarse. Thanks to that storybook, I now have a fair understanding of the intimate matters between men and women. Realizing what he was doing, my face burned with heat. So, Wei Qing's body is perfectly fine. Then I thought of what Shu Yuan had said. My heart sank. So the one with health issues is me. Early the next morning, Wei Qing went to the training grounds at the command office. I heard the border has been restless lately, so they need to take precautions in advance. Wei Qing had specifically instructed the household to follow my wishes in everything. I've lived for 18 years. It was only after entering the Wei residence that I began to live a comfortable life. Shu Yuan said Wei Qing was dull and cold-natured, but from my interactions with him these days, he's actually quite warm. Was Shu Yuan talking nonsense, or did Wei Qing already know about the marriage swap involving the Shu family's second daughter? If he already knew, then why did he accept it so willingly? Indeed, I was the fiancé that Wei Qing had been betrothed to since childhood. If it weren't for my mother's favoritism, I wouldn't have had to marry into the Li family only to return to the Wei family later. After breakfast, Chiu Yu and I immediately rushed to the estate to have Granny Liu examine my health. As soon as Granny Liu heard my purpose for coming, the Osmanthus wine I brought to honor her nearly made her choke. After coughing a few times, she finally caught her breath. Based on my over 30 years of experience treating women's ailments, your body is unique. It's what we call a treasured vessel. What does treasured vessel mean? Granny Liu glanced at me and smiled meaningfully. She whispered a few words into my ear. My face flushed bright red. This. So that night, Li Junyu and I didn't consummate our relationship, not because of any physical issue with me, but because he was all show and no substance, utterly incapable of giving me what I needed. What about Wei Qing? He has no physical problems, yet he has never allowed us to fulfill our marital duties. Why, by the time we returned to the Wei residence, it was already dark. Wei Qing sent someone to inform me that he would be back late today. After dinner, I took a walk to aid digestion, reviewed the account books, and then began writing my story. These days spent with Wei Qing, I must say, he is practically the reference for the male protagonist of my new story. Strong and robust, tall and imposing, yet tough on the outside but tender at heart, he is simply the perfect husband. As I write my story, my mind is completely filled with thoughts of Wei Qing. If I could have a good talk with Wei Qing tonight, perhaps we could create a beautiful story together, just like the male and female leads in the General's Hibiscus Flower, who lived a happy and wonderful life. But after waiting all night, Wei Qing never returned. When I woke up, the sky was already bright, and I immediately got up. Chuyue informed, "Madam, Steward Wei came with a message this morning. There is urgent military news. The Lord is to lead the army into battle." What? The news of the border crisis quickly spread throughout the city. I was restless in the mansion, wanting to find Wei Qing, but I knew it would only cause trouble. There was nothing to do but wait. On the third day, at the time of lighting the lamps, Wei Qing returned. I dropped my brush, my eyes reddened, and I threw myself into his arms. "You're back." Wei Qing was first overwhelmed by the unexpected favor, then smiled contentedly. "My wife is finally willing to get close to me." I angrily pounded his chest a few times. "It's not that I don't want to be close to you, I'm doing this for your sake." He grabbed my hand and kissed it tenderly. "What do you mean?" I looked up at him with my damp eyes, a mix of reproach and coquettishness in my gaze. "Did you know about the marriage swap?" Wei Qing looked at me with a deep, unfathomable gaze and nodded. "So you deliberately revealed that you were injured in that area, just to have Shu Yuan swap again. You are my fiancé, the woman I love, Shu Yuning. I want only you." His sincere confession touched my heart. At 18 years old, this was the first time someone had been so resolutely certain about me. I cried uncontrollably, touched by his loyalty to me, yet saddened by my parents' favoritism. I almost lost such a wonderful husband. Fortunately, he found me again. "Wei Qing, shall we consummate our marriage tonight? Let me become your true wife in every sense." I wrapped my arms around him, stood on my tiptoes, and took the initiative to kiss him. Wei Qing was momentarily stunned, then turned my initiative into his own. He grabbed my waist and kissed me fiercely. My lady finally dares to look directly at my body. It seems my efforts these past days have not been in vain. I was kissed into a daze and didn't hear him clearly at all. The red candle burned for half the night. The warriors who mingled in the military camp, usually disciplined and proper, now let loose a torrent of crude and wild words one after another. A subtle fragrance wafted through the air, filling the room with an atmosphere of intoxicating springtime allure. This Wei Qing, with his extraordinary natural talent, has truly done a number on my poor waist. Watilda. By the time the clouds dispersed and the rain ceased, I was so exhausted I could barely keep my eyes open. In my drowsy state, I felt Wei Qing gently kiss my forehead. Reluctant to part, he whispered, "Xunyang, wait for me to return. Battles have raged for 3 months. A letter from home is worth 10,000 gold. It has been 3 months since I received Wei Qing's letter from home. It was a letter of safety, and also a reassurance. My beloved wife Xunyang, the war is going well. The enemy forces are retreating steadily, and I will soon return in triumph to reunite with you." In just a few short sentences, they brought tears streaming down my face. Xunyang was the pet name my wet nurse gave me after she passed away. No one ever called me that again. Now in this world, apart from Choyue, only Wei Qing is the one who truly cares for me. I, who never cared for worshipping gods or Buddhas, now go to Fusho Temple to pray on the 1st and 15th of every month. I only wish for his safe return. My storybook, The Beauty on the Pillow, has had me